We're here at the Pennsylvania Lumber Museum Camp Kitchen, and the kitchen was really the heart and soul of the lumber camp, in so much as an army marches on its stomach. The men working in a wood camp cut and felled and skid logs on their stomach too. And it was important to have a lot of good food to keep them nourished and enthusiastic about their work. That's why often the camp cook was the highest paid employee in a lumber camp. The cook could earn almost 3 times as much as your typical wood hick, but it was worth it to pay a good cook that good money because good food attracted and retained the best workers. We try and do demonstrations here in the camp kitchen periodically throughout the year, and 2 volunteers, John and Jennifer Halter, are folks that do that for us. They're also members of the museum board of directors, and I thank them for their service, both in that regard and in showing folks what it was like to have a primitive kitchen, so to speak, in a lumber camp.
I'm Jan Halter.
And I'm John Halter.
We do volunteering at the Lumber Museum, and I'm the cook and he's the cookie. So I'm the head cook and he's my helper in the kitchen. So he's taking care of the stove and keeping it hot.
The cookie does everything that the cook doesn't want to do. So if that means going outside in the snow to get firewood, if that means peeling the potatoes, or doing the nastiest cleanup, cleaning out the stove, cleaning out the flue if it starts getting to the point where it might catch on fire. And that's the main criteria. It's the stuff the cook doesn't want to do.
And I'm just going to start preparing our first dish, which is the bean dish. They ate baked beans in the lumber camp almost every meal. There was always a pot on the stove cooking, so the dried beans would be soaked overnight and be kept added to the pot. So they would have them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Well, this is a cast iron stove. It's very heavy. It takes a long time to get warm. Even with our wood fire going at full bore, it's going to take 40-45 minutes before the stove's even warm. So when you cook at home in your electric or gas range, you set your thermostat and it brings it up to temperature probably within 10 or 15 minutes. But this will take a minimum of 45. And then you're not quite sure how hot the oven is. You'll have to use a separate gauge to make sure that it's at the temperature you want, or get real skillful about how sensitive your hands are to heat. And that's kind of what we're trying to accomplish here. So we can't keep our hands in this oven for more than like 3 seconds. So we're assuming that it's hot enough to make biscuits, which would be like 350 to 375. Hopefully. We won't really know until we start making some of these biscuits. We've got them in now, and we'll have to keep the fire going in there because there's no automatic thermostat. The only reason you know it's up to temperature is because you're going to keep a fire going in the firebox. Many people, well actually almost everyone we know, says that this stove makes better biscuits than they can make at home. And I'm not sure exactly why that is, but I think it's true as well.
So their biggest thing they ate most of the time was your beans, and they would either have pancakes for breakfast, biscuits, eggs. Most men, what I've read, ate sometimes a half dozen eggs. They mostly were fried, hard. They consumed about 8,000 calories a day per man. So when they ate a lot. When they sat here in the dining hall, they came in, we had assigned seats, and they were quiet because they didn't want any fights to come out. We had a lot of different men from different nationalities, areas.
There was pretty much a no talking rule during the dining. And that was for a couple of reasons. One is because she said so their fights would break out. And the other was because they just didn't want any lollygagging. They wanted no conversation. They wanted them to eat and get out of there. In fact, meals from the serving to when cleanup started usually took about 15 minutes. So the men came in there, consumed about 3,000 calories worth of food, and told to get back out into the woods.
So back in the lumber camp days, they did not have fancy meals. They just had good hearty meals. So with the beans, something else that's always on the stove would be hot water for tea and coffee. Coffee was also on the stove at all times for the men. Since I'm the head cook, I do most of the cooking. So that means I'm doing all the preparation of the food, and my gentleman here, John, is going to be the cookie. So he's tending the fire. He's also, we may have another man in here or woman that helps do the dishes after the meals, sets the tables, and has everything ready to go for the men. So the cookie has to take care of cutting the firewood, splitting it, hauling it, and having it ready. So he has everything back here. He has his axe to have everything prepared.
When the men got into the camp, they always kind of like tried to make fun of things. They tried to have a good time at others' expense, and one of the favorite people to have fun with was the cook. And if the cook made any mistakes, they were sure to point that out. As you see over here on the stove, these are the stove plates here. And if the pancakes got a little tough, they labeled them stove lids. So pancakes automatically became known as stove lids. If the biscuits were too hard, they would call them doorknobs because they kind of looked like doorknobs. Coffee became blackjack. Tea became swamp water. Ketchup was red lead. They had a whole list of different names they attached to the different kinds of food, just for a little levity. We feel privileged to work with this kind of equipment, kind of keep these skills alive, because most people have no idea anymore how difficult just making a meal used to be.
Because a lot of the families now don't cook from scratch. They don't shop in the grocery store on just the outer sections where everything is fresh. They eat box meals, the frozen dinners, and they're not eating like the men did back then. Everything was cooked from scratch.
And if we can show them how it used to be, they can just gain a much greater appreciation for what life was like back in 1900.